Welcome to Next on the Tee with Chris Mascaro, where PGA and LPGA players, legends, and the top instructors in the game share their insights and playing lessons. Join Chris every Tuesday night as he talks with the greats of the game. Tonight's show is sponsored by TaylorMade Golf, the PGA Tour Superstore, Golf Pride, 2 Under, Zexio, Sun Mountain Golf Bags, Finn Scooters, making the game more fun, Bionic Gloves, and the Macklemore Club. Experience life above the clouds. Now, here's your host, Chris Mascaro.
Good evening, folks, and welcome to Next on the Tee. I'm your host, Chris Mascaro. Thank you very much for coming back and being a part of the show again tonight. I also want to thank you for voting the show up to number 11 in the September edition of Podcast Magazine's Hot 50 list. Thanks to you, we've made a nice steady climb up the charts from number 44 to 39 to 31 to 16 to 14 and now number 11. So we're right on the cusp of breaking into the top 10. Please continue to vote by going online to podcastmagazine.com/hot50. I really appreciate your support. Okay, on to tonight's show, and I've got 2 of the top instructors in the game, plus a couple of great college and PGA Tour players from the 1970s and 80s that I get to share with you. First up is going to be Golf Magazine Top 100 instructor Tim Cusick. Tim has been a great friend of the show for many years. He's really one of the great guys that we are fortunate to have in our game. He's out at the new PGA of America headquarters in Frisco, Texas, as a part of their instructional team. We'll talk about how the new facility is coming along. I'll get his thoughts on the Tour Championship, Patrick Cantlay's Player of the Year award, the upcoming Ryder Cup matches, plus we'll get some playing lessons as well. Looking forward to having Tim back as part of the show. As always, he'll join me here in just a few minutes. Following him, I'll get a visit from 1979 Bay Hill Invitational winner Bob Byman. Bob had a great college career at Wake Forest, helped them win back-to-back national championships in 1974 and 75. We'll hear about that and what it was like being teammates with a couple other great players like Jay Haas and Curtis Strange. We'll hear about that win at Bay Hill. 1979, folks, was the first year that Arnold Palmer took over running that event, so that had to be a very special win for Bob. We'll talk about that in detail. We'll also hear about his experience playing in the 1978 Open Championship at St. Andrews, and then back the next year in 79 at Royal Lytham in St. Anne's. Looking forward to having Bob as part of the show. He'll join me about 25 minutes from now. Following him, I'll be joined by another great instructor and friend, Shane LeBaron. Shane recently became the director of instruction at Cherry Hills out in Colorado. Cherry Hills has got a rich history in the game, as you all know. It was the site of Arnold Palmer's charge to victory in the 1960 U.S. Open. It's also hosted several other major championships, so we'll talk about that history. We'll also get some putting and chipping tips from Shane. Looking forward to having him back with me tonight. He'll join me a little bit later on in this hour. And then we're going to round out tonight's show with a visit from John Fote. John is another guy who had a tremendous college golf career, played it up at BYU, and led them to 4 straight WAC conference championships. 1977 was a great year for John. He won the U.S. Amateur Championship that year, and then he played on the victorious Walker Cup team. So a lot happening for him in 77. 79, he goes out and wins back-to-back weeks on the PGA Tour and was named the 1979 Rookie of the Year. So a great deal to get into with him. He'll join me about an hour from now. So there you have it, folks. More great stories, tips, and information are coming your way tonight on this edition of Next on the Tee. And again, thank you so much for tuning in and taking the journey with me tonight. Before we get started, I always like to remind you about our friends over at the Macklemore. As you guys know, my buddies and I were there for our annual golf trip not that long ago, and it was simply amazing. Everything about the place is first class. We had great accommodations. The practice facility is wonderful. The on-premise restaurant called The Craig has outstanding food and service, and the course lived up to every expectation that we had for it. So I simply can't say enough great stuff about the place. See for yourself why I say that by going online to themacklemore.com. The golf course is co-designed by our good friends Bill Bergen and Reese Jones, and another friend and PGA Tour caddy Kip Henley said outside of Pebble Beach, it's the most beautiful 18th hole he's ever seen. And Golf Digest agreed, by the way, naming it the best finishing hole in America since 2000. See why we're all saying how great it is by checking out the course and the resort online at themacklemore.com. And folks, this segment of the show is brought to you by TaylorMade and their TP5 and TP5X golf balls. High draw? Check. Low fade? Check. Bump and run? Out of the sand or flop shot? Check, check, and check. No matter what shot you need to pull off, there's one ball that's better than them all, and that's the all-new TP5 and TP5X from TaylorMade. With a newly redesigned dimple pattern that decreases drag and increases lift, it's the number one ball in golf no matter the shot. So whether you need to hit it high over the trees, under, or maybe even through them, hit TP5 or TP5X, the one ball designed to handle it all. Check them out online by going to TaylorMadeGolf.com for more information. Okay, now back with me here on Next on the Tee is Top 100 instructor and a great friend of the show, like I said a moment ago, Tim Cusick. Let me remind you about Tim's background. He's been a member of the PGA of America since 1989. He's been named one of the best instructors in the state of Texas by Golf Digest every year since 2011. And in 2019, Golf Magazine named him one of the top 100 instructors in America. He's a three-time winner of the Teacher of the Year Award by the Northern Texas PGA section. He's also won the Horton Smith Award, which is given annually for outstanding and continuing contributions to professional golf education. Tim has also reached the level of master professional status. He has coached and helped more than 150 junior players secure a college golf scholarship. He has also coached players like Bruce Crampton, Brad Elder, Hollis Stacy, and Sandra Palmer. He formerly managed and taught at the Hank Haney Golf School and worked with Hank for 23 years. He's currently a member of the education faculty at PGA Frisco, the PGA of America's new headquarters in Frisco, Texas. He's written a great book titled The 4 Keys to Improve Your Game, which you can find out on Amazon.com. And I'm honored to have him back with me again tonight here on Next on the Tee. Hey, Tim, thanks for coming back on the show.
Chris, it's certainly my pleasure. And first of all, congratulations on moving up the list of the podcast. That's awesome. What a great accomplishment.
I appreciate you. Thanks to great guests like you that listeners appreciate the show. So thank you very much for that. Thanks for being here again tonight. So my friend, catch us up. It's been a minute since we got to have you on the show. What's going on out there at PGA Frisco?
You know, it has been a minute or so. I was the director of instruction at the Four Seasons for 15 years and left there about this time last year to join it could be a lifetime experience. It looks like it's going to be a lifetime experience with partnering with the PGA of America and PGA Frisco, the new development that's being built north of Dallas. $600 million project that the PGA headquarters are moving their headquarters from Florida to Frisco, and the education faculty, which I'll be part of, has moved from Port St. Lucie to Frisco as well. So I can give you a quick rundown on it. 2 championship golf courses, one Bo Welling, one Gil Hans, a 10-hole short course that Bo and Gil collaborated on, a 75,000 square foot putting course, second largest only to Bandon Dunes. Both the putting course and the short course are lighted. A 500-room Omni hotel, 12 F&B outlets, and as I said, we'll have the PGA headquarters and the education department all in one building that we're hopeful is done this coming February.
So yeah, when you say hopeful, I think everybody in the golfing world has got our fingers crossed. Are those 2 golf courses that you mentioned, are they still on pace to open up next summer, or is it going to be beyond that?
Chris, if we walked out there tomorrow morning, you could play them right now. They were grassed in and done. I would say my last trip out there in 2020 was just before they went dormant in November. And the day I was out there, they were mowing fairways and rolling greens. And then this summer, all they've been doing is just continuing to make them even better. They will start in 2023 with 10 years in a row of national championships run by the PGA of America. The first up is the Senior PGA Championship, which is in 2023, and then in 2024, the ladies KPMG LPGA Championship, and the big one in 2027 will be the PGA Championship coming up.
That's a lot of national championships played in the same spot, which is outstanding. As the course, is it going to mature enough, or is there a lot of trees that need to grow in or stuff like that? Give us an idea of what the golf courses look like.
Well, the land is incredibly rolling, and I don't want to say hilly, but I'm going to say there's probably about an elevation change of about 200, 250 feet. It was an old farm. There was a farmhouse on top of the property that had been there for 150 years, I would say. That has been replaced now by just the state-of-the-art comfort 19th hole, not 19th hole, but halfway house that they're building that's going to be just very, very special. The golf courses have Gil Hans did I don't want to call it the championship course, but that's where most of the championships will be played. Bo did the other golf course, and it's very, very interesting. And I'm sure they'll utilize that for a number of tournaments as well. But they have different characteristics. Not really a lot of trees. Obviously, north of Dallas, we tend to get a little bit of wind. You'll have the wispy grass. You'll have there's a couple really nice. Panther Creek runs through the property. It is a piece of land that you would picture prairie dunes like. I guess if you wanted something to match it up with, or just kind of have a look of it. And it looks like it's been there right now for 50 years.
And Tim, as you mentioned, the education faculty will be housed there. So for people like me that want to come get a lesson from Tim Cusick, I got to imagine the training facility that's going to be there is going to be outstanding.
So we're going to have two different centers. So the education faculty, which I'm a part of, is actually set up to train and mentor the next generation's PGA professionals coming up and through. So I've shifted gears a little bit to where I've become more of a professor now with the PGA of America. So I am doing their teaching and coaching seminars, helping mentor future master professionals. I sit on the National Teaching and Coaching Committee as a staff liaison. And so a lot of my work now is helping the next generation and today's PGA professionals. I still do some teaching, but I do that right now off-site at a facility called the Golf Ranch, which is in Richardson. My buddy Steve Johnson, who is a partner with Hank Haney, runs that facility. And so I have time for about 10 or 15 lessons a week that I get out there and teach. And so I have some full days, which is great. Now they're going to have, Chris, they're going to have a second teaching facility. The driving range is about 450 yards deep. The tee goes 280 degrees around the driving range. And on the opposite side of the education center, there will be another state-of-the-art teaching building, and we'll have a dedicated teaching staff that will take care of all the golf instruction. So my role is more a professor than it is a golf instructor at that facility.
Tim, switching gears a little bit, you talk about training the next generation. Well, the Texas chapter of the PGA of America, you've got so many talented players coming up through your junior programs. We got introduced early this year at the Masters to Will Zalatoris. We've got a couple of great Texans on the Ryder Cup team in Jordan Spieth and Scotty Scheffler. Talk about the programs and the junior programs that you're involved with.
You know, the Northern Texas PGA section is just, it's a tremendous section in a lot of different ways. Philanthropic for our members of the PGA, and then also for our junior golfers coming up. And the Northern Texas PGA section is going to relocate to PGA Frisco as well. It's going to be right next to the education center, actually. And they're getting ready to break ground on that in about another month or so. but we have, on the Ryder Cup team, we've got Jordan Spieth and Scotty Scheffler was a captain's pick as well. Both of those guys came up through our junior programs. Will Zalatoris, the newly crowned Rookie of the Year, came up through that same Northern Texas PGA section junior program. Bryson Chambeau lives in Dallas. He's lived in Dallas since he went to SMU. He didn't take part in our junior programs, but he's very, very generous with his time with junior golfers in the area. And he's on the Ryder Cup team as well.
So, Tim, I got to get your thoughts on those captain's picks. When you look at who Captain Stricker put on the team, Tony Finau, Xander Schauffele, Harris English, Daniel Berger, and then the aforementioned Jordan Spieth and Scotty Scheffler. Those are the captain's picks. You happy with those captain's picks, or if it was Captain Cusick, might a player or two have been interchanged?
That's obviously that's a tough scenario for Steve Stricker and Fred Couples and Phil Mickelson. It's very, very difficult. They keep shuffling it every couple of years to figure out, what the mix should be. Should it be how many automatic and how many captain's picks? It was 6 and 6 this year. I think it's the most captain's picks a captain has ever had. I like Harris English for sure. I mean, he has played fantastic this year. Jordan has played well this year. Scotty has played well, although he hasn't won, but he's been very consistent. And, when Steve Stricker and Freddie and Phil and even Tiger, I mean, I know Steve Stricker's talking to Tiger a lot and wanted him at Whistling Straits, and it just doesn't work out. But, they're always trying to match people up. It's a lot about how you play, but it's about matchups as well. And it's about, the way people's games are and the way the games are to fit Whistling Straits and, especially team competition. And so you've got Daniel Berger, who's a very consistent player. Scotty Scheffler makes a ton of birdies, and Tony Finau just won a couple weeks ago. I don't think that there's any question about Harris English. Could you have gone a different way? Certainly. Billy Horschel won this past weekend, and he was sitting there. He could have been a pick. Kevin Na could have been a pick. I mean, there's probably 3 or 4 that really, you woulda, coulda, shoulda, but we're going to have to go with Captain Stricker and take the team we've got to Whistling Straits.
Tim, your designation by Golf Magazine as a top 100 instructor is a tremendous accomplishment. Talk about what that means to you. That award, that appointment, that selection, when I got the call, I actually got the call from Mike Adams, who's in the Hall of Fame, World Golf Hall of Fame, a tremendous instructor. He called me. I remember in 2019, I was sitting there watching a Cowboys football game, and he called me at halftime and asked how I was doing and said, "Hey, I've got some good news for you." And I think I yelled louder for that announcement than I did at the Cowboys game. And then I was able to receive the same honor a couple months ago, and it means a lot to me. It means that what I've done for the last 35 years in my teaching career and as a PGA professional doesn't go unnoticed, and you're rewarded for the hard work and all the success that you've had in teaching. And so that and becoming a master professional in teaching and coaching with the PGA of America are 2 great honors. So, Tim, I got to get a couple of playing lessons from you tonight because I'm struggling hard in my golf game. I want to start really on the green because one of the things that, and I don't know, maybe it's because I'm old now, but reading greens has become something that I need a lot of help with. Sometimes I don't even read the right break going in the right direction. So, and I know you were just recently at a place where reading greens is paramount up at Oakmont. So I need your help trying to figure out, how do I read greens better? Well, what a treat it was last week to play. I played 18 holes on last Wednesday and 27 on Thursday. And I guess fortunate for us, we had a little bit of rain that slowed the greens down just a tad, and they probably were only rolling about 13. But they were still firm, and there's so much undulation in those greens. Chris, there's a number of different ways that you can look at it in terms of reading greens. And
And I kind of go through about 4 or 5 or 6 with my students. I like taking a look at the green as I approach the green. Off the green, away from the green, I can see from a distance the overall contour of how the green moves. And then specifically in between the golf ball and the hole. And then I start looking for, low points in the green where the water would drain. And water has to drain. The green can't be perfectly flat or else it would die. If there was water on it, it would bake. So there has to be subtle movement throughout the green. And then as I mark my golf ball, I'll stand to the side. Bones Mackay, Phil's old caddy, used to do this a lot where he'd stand there with his arm behind his back like he was going to putt to just feel what his feet are feeling. Not necessarily what his eyes are seeing, but what his feet are feeling. Are his toes being pulled towards the golf ball, which would mean a left to right break? Are his toes up in the air and he's back on his heels, which would be a right to left break for a right-handed golfer? So that starts the process. And then I start taking a look at how the hole is tilted. Which way is the hole tilted? Because that tells me as the ball is rolling its slowest, which way it's susceptible to move at the hole. And so that helps me get a picture going into the hole, which way it's going to move. People like to look at the hole as a clock. The front of the hole is 6 o'clock. The back of the hole is 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock on the right side, 9 o'clock on the left, and picturing where you see the ball going in the hole in reference to a clock, and then drawing a line or an arc, a straight line or an arc, depending on the type of putt, back to the golf ball. Those are some ways that you can read greens. There's other ways. I don't expect my student to go through all of those. Pick one that works for you. And that might be a good way to just help you with the reading greens. One of the best ways, though, is to have good distance control. Because when you have good distance control, you have a better idea how much break you have to play. When your distance control is inconsistent, it's very difficult to read the greens because you don't know how hard you're going to hit it.
And speaking of how hard you're going to hit it, as we back away from the green a little bit, sort of that in-between shot, let's say inside of 100 yards, trying to dial in the distance with whether it's a pitching wedge, sand wedge, lob wedge, it gets tricky. What's a good way for us to figure out what distance and how much of a swing we need to take, and then what club we need to pull when we're sort of in that in-between less than 100 yards out?
Chris, I would say a very successful way, and a lot of world-class players will do this, is they almost back into a yardage. What they'll do is they'll take their wedges. They'll take their lob wedge, their sand wedge, their gap wedge, their pitching wedge. So you got 4 clubs there. Let's say it's 60, 56, 52, 48. And what they will do is they'll start making certain length swings. Let's say 9 o'clock, which means that your lead arm, your left arm for a right-handed golfer is parallel to the ground, and you hinge your wrist in the backswing, and you swing all the way through with a consistent tempo or rhythm. And as you start making a consistent length swing, you're going to get a consistent distance. And then you figure out what that distance is. And then I found that if you choke down maybe into the middle of the grip, that will probably take about 5 yards off the shot. So now with the same swing, but 2 different grips, you've got 2 different distances 5 yards apart. And then you you do that with a 60, you do that with a 56, you do it with a 52, you do that with a 48. So you've got 8 distances with 1 golf swing. And you might have some overlap, but if you have overlap, one's going to fly higher than the other, one will release more. And that's a process that you can do. You could use a swing that's shoulder length to shoulder length and do the same thing. And all of a sudden, you start gathering these yardages. Carry yardage is the most important. I always talk about divot to ball mark. That's what you're trying to measure. And as you do that, you're going to start creating yardages from about 40 to 115, 120 yards. And you become very, very accurate trying to make set length swings to get a set yardage.
Tim, another flaw in my golf swing is I'm starting to get over the top and pull hooking my irons while I'm slicing my driver. I'm trying to concentrate to keep my right shoulder still, try to keep that thing quiet because I think I'm sort of getting out in front of my golf swing. What are some of the things that I can do to fix both of those problems?
So, Chris, that's a very common problem. The pull hook typically comes with the more lofted clubs, and the slice to the right comes with the straighter face clubs. And it's really the same swing, but it's what you're doing with the club face at impact. So TrackMan and Flight Scope and the other launch monitors have told us for the last 10 or 15 years that a good majority of the initial direction of the shot has to do with the club face first and foremost, and the path has a little bit to do with it. But the club face is the predominant influence of the initial direction of a shot. So if you have your swing coming out and down to the left with the path for a right-handed golfer, and the club face is square to the direction you're swinging, you're going to hit a pull. And if the club face is closed to the direction you're swinging, you're going to hit a pull hook. If you come out and down to the left with the driver and the face is open to the direction you're swinging, you're going to start imparting side spin that moves from left to right. Depending on how wide that range is, the club face to the path will depend on how much that ball curves from left to right. The key is that first of all, you got to make sure that the club isn't moving too much inside in the takeaway and the backswing that's making you come over the top. So make sure that club's coming back and up onto the plane. And then you need to feel as though wherever you take the club back, you're going to hit a little bit inside and out to right field on the downswing. Almost what you might think Jim Furyk might feel like, because you're making a loop. You're just making a reverse loop. You're making it opposite of what Jim Furyk's doing. So you want to feel like wherever you take the club back in the backswing, you're going to hit a little inside and out to right field on the downswing. Make some practice swings that way, and that'll help change that initial direction of the shot.
Tim, before I let you go, let our listeners know, how can they stay up to date with all the great things that you're doing, whether it's checking out your website or following you on social media?
Absolutely. So my website is timcusickgolf.com. Cusick is how you spell my last name, timcusickgolf.com. On Facebook, Tim Cusick Golf. On Twitter, Tim Cusick Golf. And on Instagram, it's cusick.tim. And my email address is tim@timcusickgolf.com.
Well, Tim, it's been great catching up with you and having you back as part of the show again tonight. I hope we get to spend a lot more time with you more frequently and a lot sooner than this time. You're fantastic, my friend. I can't thank you enough for being generous with your time.
Chris, thanks so much. I can't wait to show you PGA Frisco when it's all set and ready. And congratulations again on all the fine work with your podcast. I can't wait to talk to you again. You're doing a great job.
I appreciate you, Tim. Stay safe, my friend. All the best to you and your family. We'll catch up soon.
Will do. Thanks, sir.
See you, Tim. That's the great Tim Cusick. Again, Golf Magazine Top 100 Instructor, folks. Check him out online. A lot of great videos as well. If you go to YouTube and search for Tim Cusick, again, the spelling of his last name is Cusick. So you check it out. There's a lot of great content there, and it's also on his website. He's got links to YouTube, but you'll find it when you go under the media section of his website. Again, timcusickgolf.com. Look forward to catching up with Tim again soon. Before I get to my next guest, Bob Byman, I want to remind you about a few of our sponsors, starting with our friends over at Squares Golf. Are you like me, always considering new golf equipment, maybe a new driver? Well, let me reset your thinking because I discovered Squares golf shoes. The patented square toe provides balance, stability, and a wider base for increased connection to the ground, effectively increasing your swing speed by 2.2 miles per hour and an average of 9 yards of distance. Independent testing proves it. That's right. It's proven in science. Go to squares.com. That's SQAIRZ.com and get Squares 30-day money-back guarantee. Use promo code DISTANCE for $20 off. Remember, distance comes from swing speed, and swing speed comes from your connection to the ground. And folks, I wouldn't tell you about it if I didn't experience it for myself. I've never felt more stable in my golf swing, which allows me to swing faster and launch it further. Squares, the distance golf shoe. I also want to remind you about our friends over at Bionic Gloves. Whether you're looking to own the golf greens, improve your workouts, or get your hands dirty in the garden, Bionic Gloves have you covered. Designed with a hand specialist, Bionic Gloves feature patented innovations that help improve your grip. The strategically placed anatomical relief pads also help prevent calluses and blisters, while the web and motion zones allow for greater dexterity and flexibility. Head over to BionicGloves.com to find the perfect glove to up your game. And this segment of the show is sponsored by our friends over at Zexio. In 2001, Zexio Strixon began making clubs for men and women, and they've improved on those clubs every year since. I was fit for a set of Zexio 10 irons by a great fitter on their staff. He got me dialed in, and they feel and perform fantastically. They are light. I've picked up nearly 5 miles per hour in swing speed, and they're deadly accurate. Every part of Zexio clubs are made exclusively for Zexio. Everything is light and balanced. Swing weights are made to give us the highest smash factor. And the best part of getting fit for Zexio clubs is hitting it higher and straighter than ever before, changing your game. Zexio clubs are a Golf Digest Hot List Gold winner for 2021. Invi Park is a Zexio ambassador, as are Ernie Els and top instructor Martin Hall. See why and how Zexio can help your game as well. Go online to ZexioUSA.com. That's XXIOUSA.com and pick which set is right for you. Okay, now next on the tee with me is Bob Byman. Bob is from Poughkeepsie, New York. He played his college golf at Wake Forest, where he lettered all 4 years from 1973 to 1976. He was named All-American 3 times and All-ACC twice. He helped the Demon Deacons to back-to-back national championships in 1974 and 75. His 73.25 career stroke average is still one of the tops in school history. He tied for first at the 1974 ACC championship, and he finished second the following year behind teammate Curtis Strange. He took medalist honors at the 1974 Furman Intercollegiate Tournament, the 1975 Iron Duke Intercollegiate Tournament, and the 1976 Duke Spring Invitational. He turned pro in 1976. Bob played on the European Tour and had a great deal of success over there. In 1977, he won 3 national opens in Sweden, Holland, and New Zealand, and he finished 5th on the European Order of Merit. He would go on to win the Dutch and Scandinavian Opens twice, including in 1978 by 1 stroke over Nick Price. He would go on to earn his tour card in 78. He won the Bay Hill Invitational in 1979 in a playoff over John Schroeder. Later in 79, he would finish tied for 7th at the Open Championship at Royal Lytham in St. Anne's. By 1987, he turned his attention to teaching the game. Now Bob has a wonderful golf school out in Las Vegas, also does some teaching in New York, and I'm excited to have him with me tonight here on Next on the Tee. Hey, Bob, thanks for coming on the show.
Hi, Chris. Nice to be here with you. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Bob, I want to start our time tonight by going back to your junior golf days, because even though you're from Poughkeepsie, at 16 years of age, you're out there in Colorado dominating the amateur championships out there. You won the Colorado State Am 3 years in a row. You became the youngest player to ever qualify for the U.S. Open. Talk about, your transition from New York to Colorado, and then those young amateur days where you were dominating the scene out there.
Well, my father worked with IBM, and so we initially lived in Poughkeepsie, Kingston, New York, until I was about 12 years old. Played a lot of golf, a lot of junior golf then. I had an older brother that inspired me and helped me along the way, Ed Byman. And we moved to Boulder, Colorado when I was 13. And, of course, I picked up golf again as soon as we got there. And, I had a couple important moments in time. I remember practicing at Flatiron Country Club in Boulder. I was a pretty good player when I was 15. I was probably a 0 handicap already, but had a very strong grip. And a buddy of mine was watching me hit some balls, and he said, well, how come you hook so many shots? I said, well, I don't hook any shots. He said, look, you need to look at this book. You need to read this book. And that was Ben Hogan's 5 Lessons of the Modern Fundamentals of Golf. So he said, look, if you really want to be the best that you can be, you need to get your hands on the club this way. And so, I devoured that book that night and didn't initially make the adjustment. But I did do that when I was 16. And initially, I was hitting everything off to the right, not very good. But within about 2 or 3 days, I started hitting the ball like I was imagining it to go. It was fabulous, and that is really what led me to be able to separate myself from the other junior and amateur golfers in the state when I was 16 years old. That was 1971. And kept going, just kept improving. You mentioned I qualified for the U.S. Open that next year when I was 17, played at Pebble Beach, and just one of the greatest experiences of my life. That as you go through this stuff, one thing leads to another. Played with Arnold Palmer in a practice round there, and I remember double bogeying the first hole. I think the most nervous I've ever been in golf on the first tee. It was unbelievable. And I double bogeyed the first hole and then never missed another fairway and never missed a green. It was about 55 degrees. The wind was blowing 15 miles an hour. One of the greatest 17 holes I've ever played in my life. I made about a 20-footer on the last hole, and Arnold's looking over at me, and he's clapping for me. He stopped me afterwards and said, "You young man, I like what you're doing. You should consider going to Wake Forest." And that's really the thing that opened that idea up to me. And then, of course, I talked with the great Jesse Haddock, the coach there, and that kind of sealed the deal. So that kind of brings me up into college days.
So I got to ask you, right? I mean, you're out in Colorado, and I certainly, if Arnold Palmer says to you, you need to go to Wake Forest, well, you need to go to Wake Forest. But I have to imagine, having had such a successful amateur career, you had to have college coaches knocking down your door. Was it really Mr. Palmer?
That was very, very influential to me. I had won the U.S. Junior when I was 17. I think that year, 1972, I think I played in 13 tournaments. I think I won at least 10 or 11 of them. The only ones I didn't win were the U.S. Open, the U.S. Amateur, and I think the Colorado Open. I mean, it was a great season, and I played a lot as a pro, but the game was never as simple and easy for me as a pro as it was during that 1 year in high school. So. Arnold was a big deal. That was a big moment for me, playing with him and then having him say that. But actually visiting Wake Forest and meeting and talking to Jesse Haddock, that really sealed it. I had lots of offers. I think I was the number one recruited guy in the country at that point. Curtis Strange was the number two, and we both were recruited at the same year. It was unbelievable. So we turned a good program into a great program, and that allowed us to win those next two NCAA championships. It was great time to be at Wake Forest for sure.
Yeah, and as I was doing the research, that 75 team that you guys had is touted as the best college team ever, according to Golf World magazine. I mean, you guys won that second national championship by 33 strokes over Oklahoma State. So it was much closer going into the final round. I think you guys had about a 6-stroke lead going into that final round, and then put on a clinic. And you and Curtis, and you had Jay Haas and David Thor leading the team, and Jay would win the individual national championship. But Curtis finished third. You finished fourth. Talk about that team.
Yeah, we had a fabulous team. I went to school. I was not healthy when I went to school. My elbow was bothering me a bit. But I got to play with Curtis a number of times when he was a freshman. I was a freshman. And he was the most fundamentally sound player as a junior that I'd ever seen. It was incredible how this young fella drove the ball and was able to hit long irons. I'd never seen anything like it. And, of course, he won the NCAA individual championship as a freshman. And then that led us into the next year where Jay Haas started to exert his talent, and all of us wanted to win that NCAA, not just for the team, but individually. So we had a bunch of guys that last day that three out of us had a great chance to win the event individually, and because of that, I think that's why we just moved past everybody. It was unbelievable, really, when you think back at it. I mean, Jay finished first, Curtis finished third, I finished fourth, and David Thor, he was another terrific player, who was from North Carolina, very solid player, had a nice tournament. So we just absolutely dominated, and it was a very, very satisfying for everybody. And I think that was, I don't know, you look back and you go, well, here's Curtis Strange. He became the number one player in the world for a couple years. Jay Haas had probably the longest career of all of us, and then won a major championship on the Champions Tour. And in golf world, I was kind of touted as the International Rookie of the Year in 1977. And David Thor, and I played on the tour for 8-9 years in a world class manner. And David Thor made the tour and played on the tour for a couple of years. So all four of us made the tour, and all of us excelled in a very, very nice way. So it was a great, great team.
Talk to us about those, when I think about those college days and how good you guys were. And I'm imagining you guys pushing each other. As you mentioned, all of you had a chance to win a national championship. You were right there clustered. Is this a group of guys that were up in the morning when you weren't in class, out at the practice range, at the practice facility, doing whatever you guys needed to do and pushing each other to be better and better and better? Or where did the college life fit in? So you had a nice college experience. What was it actually like, not just on tournament days, but in the preparation and on the practice facility, trying to be the best and try to beating each other, which raised the level of the team?
Well, I would say that I did the most practice of any of the 4 or 5 of the top guys out there. Jay and Curtis were beautifully taught. I mean, Curtis's father was a terrific player. I think he played in 5 or 6 U.S. Opens and was taught or influenced by Sam Snead. So that kind of translated into Curtis. Curtis practiced, but he didn't practice so much. He loved to play, and he worked on his game out on the golf course. Jay was influenced by Bob Goldby, so his technique was, pretty sound. He improved, continued to improve as a professional, but he was a solid player, not a great practicer either. But they spent a lot of time on the golf course, and David was kind of on the in between. He did some practicing and playing as well. So most of the time that we spent together as a team was on the golf course, working together, talking to each other, just noticing what the other player does. We had some fabulous, 5 and 6 guys too. If you remember, a guy named Scott Hogue had a heck of a time getting on our team. And he ended up having one of the best professional careers of any of us. I mean, it was really highly competitive, and but that's kind of the way it went. And it was a good time. We worked hard. We did have some college experience for everybody, and it was a good time. Good time.
Were those 3 years, 1974 to 76, and you guys competing for the national championship each year, was that when golf was the most fun for you, or did you get even better when you went out and played professionally on the European and the PGA tours?
I think I mentioned earlier when I was 17, that was probably the most enjoyable golf was for me because, I didn't know everything about how to play the game, but I was able to hit the shots that were in my mind more often than probably any other time. I had to find out other ways to play the game as a pro because my technique, I was not taught particularly well. I just kind of dug it out of the ground and was highly talented. So, I had to figure out how to curve the ball and be a shot maker and have a great, let's say inside of a 120 game and a, highly competitive attitude. I learned as a kid early from a quote from Ben Hogan, if you want to win, you have to outwork them, you have to outthink them, and then you try to do your best to intimidate. So I certainly tried to outwork everybody. I did my very best to have no one have a better strategy or management or a plan to play. And, in some circles, when I was playing my best, perhaps I had a little bit of intimidation until I came on the PGA Tour because there were so many great players at that point. But, certainly in Europe, it was oh my goodness. It's interesting how things lead you to one thing and then to another. I missed qualifying for the PGA Tour by a shot, 6 rounds, shot even par over 6 rounds, 1 under made it, and was very depressed. And I go, oh my God, what am I going to do now? And a buddy of mine was taking a group of U.S. players over to Europe. And all you had to do was Monday qualify at that point. And if you Monday qualified, you were in the tournament. So after about a week of licking my wounds, I decided that I would go. And the third week I was over there, I won the event. And I believe it was the 5th or 6th week, I won another back and forth. I think I played only 7 or 8 tournaments that year and finished 5th on the order of merit. It was a great, great experience. Later in the year, I went to Australia and New Zealand to play, won the New Zealand Open, had some great, some high finishes in New Zealand and Australia. And, I would not give up playing internationally for anything. I eventually got on the tour in 1978, qualified. I was ready at that point. And then my 13th tournament, I won on the PGA Tour at the inaugural Bay Hill Classic. Yeah.
So let's talk about that Bay Hill Classic. To your point a moment ago, you had to go through Monday qualifying, and you did that. And that 79 year, I believe, was Mr. Palmer's first year as the tournament sponsor. And you won it. When I look back over that tournament, you won it in part thanks to a hot start in the final round. You birdied 3 of the first 5 holes and got a little hairy down the stretch on 17 and 18. But then you go into a playoff against John Schroeder. You par the second playoff hole. And the next thing you know, you're standing in front of Mr. Palmer, and he's handing you the trophy. That had to be a special thing.
Well, it sure was. I qualified on a Monday. I was on the West Coast for the weeks before, not playing well. I came home. I had a week off, and looking in the mirror. We didn't really use video all that much back then, and experimenting with this and experimenting with that. And all of a sudden, I caught something and then played a pretty good qualifying round. And then, interestingly, this was in the Orlando area, and very often Mo Norman would be near the tournament, and he was at the course that the qualifying was at, and he was hitting some balls afterwards. I had met Mo a few years before. Had become friendly with him, so I went over and watched him, and got just absorbed the repetition, not the way he moved, but the fundamentals he used, but the energy signature and the repetitiveness of the rhythm. And then I applied that to myself, And with the thing that I had learned the week before about what I had been doing in my swing, it all came together, and I was super confident going into that event. Actually played with Curtis and Jay and my brother Ed in the practice round. That was the best round I played the entire week, and and then played pretty darn well, through I would say 70 holes. And then the 71st hole, that 17th hole, wow, that was something. The par 3 there over the water, over the bunkers. My legs got as heavy as they had ever been. I had never experienced that before. Hit the ball a little bit in the heel, came up in the bunker, hit it up about 3 feet, missed the putt. And that kind of jolted me back into, let's get this done kind of thing. Now, I bogeyed the last hole, but that actually prepared me for the playoff. The first playoff hole, I hit a good drive, hit maybe one of the best iron shots I've ever hit in my life. Almost holed it, went about 8 feet by, left the putt on the lip, hit a good drive on the next hole, hit it up about 35 feet to the right of the hole. The pin's on the front left. And John Schroeder did not hit a good second shot, chipped it up about 6 feet. I hit my 35, 40-footer up about 6 inches, tapped it in, and he missed it on the left. And that was it. I won the event. It was, I'm talking about it, and I can still, my body can still feel what I was experiencing at that time. It's fabulous. Great.
Bob, a couple more before I let you go. And I want to talk about your experiences at the Open Championship in 78 and 79. That 78 year, you finished tied for 17th. The event was played at St. Andrews. That would be a year that Jack Nicklaus won. But it was a veritable who's who of golf legends around the top of the leaderboard throughout all 4 rounds. What was it like for you being in the mix there?
Well, that was my first introduction to being, I would say, close to, at least having an outside chance to win. I played with Seve Ballesteros, who had become a great competitor of mine, but a friend as well. We played the last round together. And I was 2 under, I believe, through 9 or 10. And at that point, I think 5 under was leading. So I figured, man, if I could, find a way to make a couple birdies coming in the end, maybe I could get in the mix. Of course, 18 was downwind at that point. You're always thinking you can make a birdie there. So I'll tell you what, that first experience was, just a little bit too much for my nervous system to handle. At that point, I had not imagined and prepared for some of the things that my body and my mind were experiencing. I think I shot 2 over on the last 9, played pretty solidly, but missed a shot or here and there and finished even par for the event. And that kind of led me into 1979. I was playing a little bit better in 1979 than in 1978, although I was not playing as well as I was at the Bay Hill like 3 months before. So I was confident, but there was still, if I could figure out just that one little thing, I might be able to find a way. So the last 9 of the last day, this is Royal Lytham in St. Anne. I was right there. I birdied the 13th hole. I think I got back to maybe 1 over for the event. I think Jack was even, and against Seve Ballesteros, I think was 2 under at that point. So I was right there. And the wind was blowing about 30, and I continued to hit good drives. Had trouble with the irons coming in, and just was not able to finish strongly, and finished 7th there from being 3rd. So I was, you look back and you go, wow, I finished 7th. That's really, really good. But I was 3rd by myself at a moment in time there. So I was very disappointed. and how that happened. But looking back, it's like, wow, you finished 7th at the British Open. That's pretty good. So.
Yeah, it is. Oh. Bob, let everybody know what you're doing now, teaching the game in your golf school.
Yes, sir. I've, of course, as you mentioned, I played on the tour for a long time, and teaching a little bit, 1985, and then in full, that became my business in 1987. Taught all over the world in different locations around, but now my business is in Las Vegas. I teach at the TPC Las Vegas, and we specialize in one-on-one golf schools, but we can handle any size group and any goal that any golfer has for themselves. With my competitive experience and my teaching and coaching over decades, give me that expertise. I feel like, I give as good as or better than anybody in the world today as a coach or a teacher. So you can find me at bobbymangolf.com or go to golfschool.com.
Well, Bob, it has been a thrill having you as part of the show tonight. I feel like we probably just scratched the surface on being able to tap into, particularly on the teaching side. I hope you'll come back and do it again sometime.
Oh, I would love to, Chris. That would be great. I appreciate it very much. It's I've listened to a number of your podcasts now, and very, very impressed. And you're just a great guy, and I appreciate you giving me the time to be with you tonight.
Well, certainly glad to have had you here, and thank you very much for that. Stay safe, Bob. All the best to you and your family. I look forward to catching up with you again soon. See you, Bob. That's the great Bob Byman, and I tell you what, folks, what a tremendous college career. Obviously, back-to-back national championships, and a guy that was right at the top of the college game, and then obviously at the amateur level, and then transitioned that over to the PGA Tour and over in Europe, where he won, like I say, several national championships. A great player and now a great instructor. So next time we get him back, we'll start to pick his brain a little bit more on the teaching side. But you can see the pedigree he has behind him and what a wonderful golfer he has been. Okay, before I get to my next guest, Shane LeBaron, I want to remind you about a few more of our sponsors, starting with our friends over at Finn Cycles. Are you like me, always considering new golf equipment, maybe a new driver? Well, let me reset your thinking because I discovered Square's golf shoes. The patented Square Toe provides balance, stability, and a wider base for increased connection to the ground, effectively increasing your swing speed by 2.2 miles per hour and an average of 9 yards of distance. Independent testing proves it. That's right. It's proven in science. Go to squares.com, that's SQAIRZ.com, and get Square's 30-day money-back guarantee. Use promo code DISTANCE for $20 off. Remember, distance comes from swing speed, and swing speed comes from your connection to the ground. And folks, I wouldn't tell you about it if I didn't experience it for myself. I've never felt more stable in my golf swing, which allows me to swing faster and launch it further. Squares, the distance golf shoe. And folks, this segment of the show is sponsored by our friends over at the PGA Tour Superstore.
This segment of the show is brought to you by the PGA Tour Superstore. See why golfers everywhere are proud to call PGA Tour Superstore their golf pro shop. Visit them online at PGATourSuperstore.com. Now back to Chris and more of the show.
Now back in next on the tee with me is one of the top instructors in the game and another great friend of the show, Shane LeBaron. Let me remind you about Shane's background. He's from Lincoln, Nebraska. He played his college golf at Oklahoma State and then Methodist College in Fayetteville, North Carolina. After college, he played out on the mini tours before deciding that teaching the game was where his heart is at. He became the assistant golf professional at Blue Hills Country Club in Kansas City in 1998, where he learned under PGA Hall of Fame instructor Stan Thirsk. From there, he moved over to become the lead instructor at Shadow Glen Golf Club in Kansas. 2002, he moved over to Hilton Head, South Carolina, where he worked as an instructor at both Moss Creek Golf Club and Belfair Golf Club. He later opened his own golf school at Old South Golf Club in Bluffton, South Carolina. He became the college golf coach at the University of South Carolina, Beaufort in 2008. In 2012, he became the director of instruction at the Plain Truth Performance Center at Wigwam Resort in Phoenix, Arizona. And like our friends Andy Trainer and Kevin Roman, Shane is a Level 3 Plain Truth certified instructor. He's been nominated a few times by Golf Magazine as one of their top 100 instructors. Golf Digest voted him the best teacher in the state of Arizona in 2013. He's on the Callaway Golf Master staff, and Shane has now become the first director of instruction at Cherry Hills Golf Club in Cherry Valley, Colorado. And I'm very honored to have him back with me again tonight here on Next on the Tee. Hey, Shane, thanks for coming back on the show.
Chris, thanks so much for having me. How are you?
I'm fantastic, Shane. How are you, my friend? It's been a minute since I got to talk to you. Catch us up, especially now that you're out there at Cherry Hills.
Yeah, life's changed a little bit. It's pretty neat. Very interesting how this all came about. I was pretty happy. I was at the two places. I think last we talked, I was at Knollwood Club in Lake Forest, Illinois, and then at Mirabelle Club in Scottsdale. Wonderful place. And Cherry Hills has gone through some changes, and they hired a new head pro, Andrew Shuck, who's a really good guy. And anyway, part of their deal was looking for an instructor. And I got a phone call from him. We had a great conversation. And one thing led to another, and I now live in Denver.
and for folks, and I'm sure everybody who loves the game knows about Cherry Hills. I mean, it's one of the most historic places in our game. Historians will remember, Arnold Palmer for his great charge at the 1960 U.S. Open there at Cherry Hills when he drove the first green, 346-yard par 4. And we've seen Andy North win a U.S. Open there. Phil Mickelson won a U.S. Amateur there. Jack Nicklaus won a U.S. Senior Open there. I mean, talk about the rich history for that golf course that you get to be a part of now.
It's impressive. We also have the U.S. Am coming up in 23 at Cherry Hills. I don't know if you do that or not.
Yeah.
But it's so as an instructor, you're always kind of looking for a place that you can go to, and maybe it's the perfect job, and you can be there for a long time. And it's always great, if you find a good job, but you're either following up somebody who's done a really bang up job, and you've got huge shoes to fill, right? Or you're coming into a place where maybe things didn't go quite as well as they would have liked, and maybe the membership has a bad taste in their mouth about instruction, and then you're digging yourself out of a hole. Well, the beauty of Cherry Hills is it never happened. So I'm it. So it's my stamp, it's my footprint, and it's really kind of an exciting thing because, again, like I'm not digging myself out of a hole, and I'm not following up somebody who's just done incredible. So it's really neat. The membership's great. They're really just fantastic people. The golf course is just, Chris, it's unbelievable. It is so good. I'll be excited to see how the kids do. I say kids because the U.S. Amateur now is all of a sudden a big college golf tournament. But I'll be excited to see how they do, and it'll be a great match play event. It'll be so much fun to watch them.
So, Shane, I mean, I really want to get your thoughts as you talk about how wonderful the golf course is, and I'm sure it's all that and more. I mean, like I say, when I go back and I look at some of the historical films, obviously I took a look at Mr. Palmer's win in 1960 at the U.S. Open. I mean, he beat Ben Hogan and Jack Nicklaus. Jack was still an amateur at that point, but Mr. Hogan had an opportunity to win 17, I think, got him, and 18 sort of finished the deal for him trying to win that U.S. Open. But Jack was right in the mix there, and then obviously that great charge from Mr. Palmer. But talk about the golf course, what it looks like, and for folks that have never seen it and gone back to look, obviously we'll probably get a good look here in a couple of years, to your point, at the U.S. Am. But talk about what that golf course looks like.
Well, it's a William Flynn design, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he also did Shinnecock.
That's right.
The greens are impressive. They're small, but there's a good amount of undulation on those greens, and there's a huge percentage on second shots. So the fairways are, I wouldn't call them easy to hit by any stretch, but they're definitely gettable off the tee. But the second shot, because the greens are so small, if you don't have enough height and enough spin on the ball, you can struggle on that golf course. It's at altitude, so that does play a little different, right? But I think Cherry Hills is about 5,400 feet, 5,500 feet in elevation, so it's up there a good bit. So the ball does travel, and that plays a role. But it's interesting because a lot of the longer, tougher holes happen to play uphill, which is sort of an altitude equalizer, right? And our ninth hole, for example, I think from the back tees, it's got to be 470 and change, but it is straight uphill. It's not quite as uphill as, say, 18 at Augusta National, but it is up. And so when you're coming up 9, you have to just absolutely bust a drive, and then you've got this little uphill hanger lie, trying to hit an iron shot to get it onto the green, and that's not the easiest shot in the world. But it's a really neat golf course. I feel like it kind of, some of these places, they really just stand the test of time. And the conditioning is fantastic. There's a little bit of elevation change kind of mildly throughout the course. And then you've got a ravine that runs through the golf course. It also comes into play on quite a few shots if you get a little wayward. So it's fantastic. Big, huge old trees, thick, lush, rough, greens that just whistle. And so I hope if you get a chance, you need to come out and play.
Yeah. You don't have to twist my arm hard to come play Cherry Hills. I promise you that.
By the way, so when you were talking about Mr. Palmer and his charge, so do you know what happened on 17 with Hogan?
Yeah. Didn't he spin his ball back into the water?
So he hit the pin on 17 with a wedge shot.
My.
17 is an island. It's a par 5 with an island green. And he hit the pin on his third shot with a little wedge shot. And it came off the pin and went in the water, and he tried to play out of it. And he played with Jack Nicklaus. And afterwards, they interviewed Mr. Hogan. And he said, well, if this kid learned how to putt, he might win something. I think he figured it out. But it's pretty neat to be part of at least the history going forward of this. It's just a spectacular facility. It really is.
Shane, we haven't talked in the past about who your golf idols were. I know you're a fan of Mr. Hogan, but who are the guys out on tour that you really admired?
So I was a huge Nick Price fan, and I've always been a fan of guys that can strike an iron, and Nick Price could just flat hit iron shots. And I think we all remember him playing those little Ram FX blades, and just firing at pins. He was just incredible with an iron. So I've always been enamored at players that hit unbelievable iron shots. I get a kick out of that. It was funny when I was at Moss Creek years ago. We had a gal that worked in the administrative part of the club. Her name was Jill, and one day we came up there, and I was getting something out of the administrative office, and golf came up, and she said, well, who do you like? And I said, well, I'm a huge Nick Price fan. She said, no kidding. And I guess they're family friends. And she didn't tell me this. And I said, yeah. I said, well, Nick Price and I both have the same birthday. I loved watching him play. I had a Fat Lady Swings putter, if you remember those. It was a Bobby Grace Fat Lady Swings is what it was called, the putter. And Nick Price used, and I got one of those because he was using it. And anyway, I said, well, we have the same birthday, January 20. I said, we have the same birthday. She said, no kidding, January 28th. And that's not that bright, so I didn't put 2 and 2 together. Well, my birthday rolls around, and this package shows up at the club. And it was a picture of Mr. Price holding the claret jug, signed, to Shane, happy birthday, what a great day to have a birthday on. Best wishes, Nick Price. And that was like the coolest thing I'd ever seen. So I was a huge Nick Price fan. unbelievable solid ball striker. And, I've never gotten a chance to actually meet him in person.
Is that right?
But thoroughly, never in my life. But thoroughly just thought he was just the best. And also a huge Freddie Couples fan.
It's interesting. Freddie Couples and Nick Price, when I think about both of their swings, it seems very sort of 180 degrees different from each other. When I think about Nick Price, I mean, he took the club back. He had a lot of speed in the backswing and the through swing. And Freddie was still is very deliberate on the backswing and gets a lot of his speed, as he's coming through on the downswing and then obviously finishing through. But from a speed and tempo perspective, they seem very different to me.
Oh, miles apart. That's kind of the beauty of this game, right? It's not a one size fits all. There's no cookie cutter. There's no way to say, right, well, gosh, we should all swing with the tempo and rhythm that Ernie Els has, or we should all try to swing like Nick Price. I mean, they're both pretty incredible, right?
Yeah.
So, but I always thought Freddie was cool. He was just a good-looking guy. He dressed sharp, and it was like all the guys kind of wanted to be him, and I think all the girls liked him. Like, who wouldn't want to be Freddie Couples? He just seemed like he had it all figured out.
Agreed. Yes, it did. Shane, before I let you go, I got to get a playing lesson from you. And you did a video about putting where you talk about how amateur golfers like me, we can step up to a 5-foot putt, to save par or for a bogey, and we can make that putt, it seems like, all the time. But if that 5-footer is for birdie, we typically miss. And you say it's because we're not used to making birdies. We're more used to trying to save par. Talk about why it's different.
Well, it's time and place, right? And people find their comfort zone. They get used to whatever X is. If you're 10 handicap, you tend to shoot roughly 10 over par, and that's kind of your comfort zone. And it's no different than the 10 handicap that all of a sudden walks up to 17 tee and realizes he's 3 over on the day. It's a big deal. And so It happens in a little smaller form as it relates to putting, but and this is a little off the question you just asked, but I think your listeners will get a kick out of this. So, do you remember when David Duval shot his 59?
Yes. I just watched that video. Yeah.
Isn't that cool? And I don't know if you remember, but the guys in his group kind of were struggling a little bit and had to get some rulings and that sort of thing. And he fired that thing up there to about 6 feet. And he and his caddy got up there and quickly marked the ball and walked off the green with their back to the hole. And he didn't look back. And one day I asked him, I said, what were you guys doing? Like, you walked off the green, backs to the hole. And he says, I knew what that putt was for, obviously. He says, and I knew that my first look was my best look, and I wanted it to be my only look. He goes, so what I did is I waited till it was my turn, got over there, looked at it once, and hit the thing as quick as I could hit it. And I think as amateurs go, to kind of elaborate on the question that you just asked, I mean, you can think of this in terms of yourself as a golfer. How many times do you get over a putt and go, oh, it looks like this, got it, and you set up over it and go, nope, now it goes this way.
Yes.
Most people are doing that. I don't know. Let's just go with at least 50% of the time. They get over it and it changes versus trusting their first look and just letting it go, right?
Right.
So I sort of thought what David said was very genius. He knew his first look was his best look. He was going to trust it and go with it. And didn't mess around. I mean, obviously he read it like he normally would, right? But he didn't get over that thing and let that secondary element kick in. Well, the secondary element for the golfer that doesn't make a lot of birdies is, oh, dear God, I have a chance for a birdie. Well, if you get up over it, take your look, get your first look, call it good, pull the trigger, chances are you get a much better chance of getting that thing to drop in the bottom of the cup than you would if you got over it and all of a sudden, try to do some new mathematics to figure this whole thing out.
That's 100% right. And I tell you what, that's probably the best playing lesson. And in the 8 years I've done this show, that might be the best playing lesson I've heard. I need to adopt that going forward. Good call out of you.
That's it.
Shane, before I let you go, remind our listeners how they can stay up to date with you.
You can follow me on Instagram at LeBaron Golf, or check me out at our website, ShaneLeBaronGolf.com.
Shane, you are a treat, my friend. I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your night to come back and be a part of the show. I always have a great time when you're here. I hope you'll come back and do it again soon.
I'd love to, Chris. I really appreciate you spending some time with me. It's a pleasure to visit with you, and thank you for all you do for golf and us instructors. We all genuinely very much appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you guys. Take care, Shane. Stay safe, my friend. All the best to you and your family. I look forward to catching up soon.
Thank you, Chris. You take care.
See you, Shane. That's the great Shane LeBaron. And folks, that is the best playing lesson I have received on this show in 8 years. I am not going to be the guy that stops, because Shane's 100% right. You get behind the ball, you look and you make your read. And the next thing you know, you're standing up over the ball and you go, wait a minute, it's not going that way. That's why I asked earlier in the show about trying to make sure, how do you find the break? How do you read the break? How do you read the green? And that's the thing that I do to myself more times than not. I've got to read. I stand up over the ball. Now I'm looking at the hole as I'm standing, I just stride the ball, right? And then I say, no, it doesn't break that way at all. It breaks the other way. So then I hit it the other way, and then I wonder, I thought it broke that way. No, that is a great lesson right there. Trust your first read from now on. Okay, before I get to my next guest, John Fote, I want to give a shout out to our friends over at 2 Under. 2 Under men's performance briefs are the official underwear of the 2021 U.S. Ryder Cup team, the captain and all vice captains. They are worn by more than 30 players on the PGA and Champions Tour. They are also worn by over 70 NCAA Division I colleges and 17 NFL teams. The Joey Pouch technology provides the ultimate male asset management, delivering maximum comfort, fit, and performance, from the golf course to the boardroom to the bedroom. Find these 2 Under performance men's briefs in over 4,000 golf pro shops nationwide, all Shields sports stores, PGA Tour Superstore, Golf Galaxy, and other fine retailers near you. Go online to 2under.com. That's the number 2, UNDR.com. 2 Under performance in your pants. Use code ONTHE20 for a 20% discount at checkouts. Not valid on items already on sale or NCAA licensed briefs. I also want to welcome a new sponsor to the show, Pine Valley Orthotics, and their founder, Stu Sakowitz. Did your feet, back, knees, and hips stop you from playing good golf or golf at all? Maybe plantar fasciitis or neuropathy is killing your golf game? Then you owe it to yourself to try a pair of Pine Valley Orthotics with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Pine Valley Orthotics are uniquely designed with an energy return system not found in any other product. When you step down, they gently spring back, relieving foot pain and stress, energizing your whole body, and they work. I love my Pine Valley Orthotics. I've got them in my golf shoes, and I've got them in my dress shoes. In fact, Stu Sakowitz, the owner, is so sure that they're going to ease your pain, he's offering a 30-day money-back guarantee. If you want better balance and stability, treat yourself to a pair of Pine Valley Orthotics today. Go to PineValleyOrthotics.com, and for a limited time, you can get these for only $99 and a 30-day money-back guarantee. That's only $99. Ease your pain, improve your game, and change your life. Only at PineValleyOrthotics.com. Okay, now next on the tee with me is John Fote. John is one of the top golf course architects in our game, who also played out on the PGA Tour, the Korn Ferry Tour, and the Champions Tour. He's from Portland, Oregon, and he played his college golf at BYU, where he helped them win 4 WAC conference championships and 29 tournament titles. He won the Pacific Coast Amateur Championship in 1975 at the Olympic Club in San Francisco. He was also named an All-American in 1976 when he won 2 collegiate tournaments, helped BYU to the runner-up finish in the NCAA tournament, and he played on the World Cup Amateur team. That year, he also tied teammate Mike Reed for low amateur in the U.S. Open here at the Atlanta Athletic Club. 1977 was a big year for John. He was a member of the victorious U.S. Walker Cup team. He won the U.S. Amateur Championship and was also named U.S. Amateur Athlete of the Year. He turned pro later in 1977 and joined the PGA Tour in 1978. Got his first win on the PGA Tour in 1979 at the Buick Goodwrench Open in a playoff over Jim Simons. He backed that up, winning the very next week at the Anheuser-Busch Classic, and he was named the 1979 PGA Tour Rookie of the Year. In the late 80s, he started John Fote Design and began designing golf courses. He originally worked with Bob Cupp before going out on his own. Among his great works are Pumpkin Ridge in North Plains, Oregon, and redesigning Pine Needles Golf Club in North Carolina. He also redesigned the Dogwood and Azalea courses at the Country Club of Jackson, Mississippi, which is the site of the Sanderson Farms Championship on the PGA Tour. In 1995, John was inducted into the BYU Hall of Fame, and in 2009, he was inducted into the Pacific Northwest Golf Association's Hall of Fame as well. I'm very excited he is with me tonight here on Next on the Tee. Hey, John, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks very much, Chris. It's fun to talk with you for a while.
John, I want to start our time tonight by going back, really, I guess, to the beginning of the game for you, because I read it was your grandmother that started you playing when you were 7 years old. Talk about her.
Yeah, that's exactly right. My parents had 6 children, and they were to have one of them get out of the house, and I used to sneak out with my grandmother. She was learning to play golf, and I caddied for her at the beginning when I was about 6 or 7 years old. And then she taught me a little bit how to play, and I just started whacking the ball around, which was fun. And I actually played in the women's group on the public golf courses, which was hilarious. When I ended up winning the U.S. Amateur, I got notes from them, and I was an honorary member of their group, which was hilarious. But my grandmother was very special to me, and she introduced me to my wife, and so she was a big part of my life when I was young.
And John, being from Portland, Oregon, curious, what got you to BYU? It
was really funny that I got I really didn't want to go to BYU. I was, more settled on going to one of the southern schools, but I actually, the coach had me stay with Johnny Miller. And of course, back in those days, Johnny Miller was the king. And I stayed with him for a few days. And after that, I was more than happy to go to BYU. It was a great experience. I had the best teammates when I played there. Our first 6 guys all at some point in time went on the PGA Tour, and it was quite competitive for us to be able to play against one another each day.
And John, talk about the rich history of golf there at BYU. You mentioned Johnny Miller, and I've had the privilege of having Zach Blair, Richard Zirkle, and Bobby Clampett as guests on the show, but you throw in Miller, Daniel Summerhays, Mike Weir. I mean, I could go on and on. BYU has had a heck of a men's golf program. Talk about the rich history there.
Yeah, we did. Coach Tucker was as responsible as anybody for that. He was a good recruiter, and he was kind of at the forefront. He always had us in uniforms. We all wore the same thing before everybody else did years ago. And they were, and at that time we were a very competitive school, obviously, and the WAC, which is what we were in, had Arizona and Arizona State in it. And so we had and he always took us to really good tournaments, mostly all on the West Coast, but we got a chance to play great golf courses against great people, great players, and it made us all better, really.
And John, you won the Northwest Open title, beating a guy that, as I read, became a friend of yours later on, Peter Jacobson, who is also from Oregon and was the reigning Pac-10 champion at the time. What do you remember about going head-to-head in that tournament against Jake?
Well, I was quite fortunate. I was actually 2 shots down with 3 holes to play. And I hit some rather miraculous shots, one of them out of the trees, to about 10 feet and made it for birdie, and then I birdied the last hole as well. And we ended up in a playoff, and I won on the second hole. I mean, I was very fortunate. As we were walking up that last fairway, there were all the people were out there congratulating because he still had a 2-shot lead. Unfortunately, he managed to 3-putt, and I managed to make about a 12-footer for birdie, and away we went into a playoff. And, I think it's pretty hard to win a tournament after you basically got it won, and then the whole world caves in on you. And the other guy makes 2 or 3 birdies coming in on the last couple holes, and you just make 1 or 2 mistakes, and all of a sudden you're tied. So, it would have been a tough day for anybody to beat the other guy who's making birdies, and you've got the tournament won, and then it just total collapse. So, but yeah, Peter and I played against each other a number of times. He's a fantastic player and played very well on the PGA Tour.
John, in 1976, not only did you tie teammate Mike Reed for low amateur at the U.S. Open, you also were right there on the leaderboard next to Arnold Palmer, who you also tied in that tournament. Had to be a huge thrill for you playing so well that week. Talk about what you remember about that U.S. Open.
It was the first time I ever played. I've never played on greens that fast in my life. At that point, I hadn't played in a U.S. Open or or Masters or any of those things. And I remember walking out to the putting green the very first day, getting there, dropping 3 balls, and I stood over the putt about 25 feet, and I hit it 25 feet past. And then the next putt, I hit about 15 feet past. I stepped back and said, okay, this is going to be different. And it was. And I mean, I learned a lot about competitive golf. I played a practice round with Johnny Miller, and I played a practice round with Billy Casper, and some other guys. And boy, I just soaked it in. It was really fun to play that golf tournament. It was so big, and it was just a cool thing. I'd never had a chance to play in anything that big before. And, when you make a birdie, the whole place erupts, because there's galleries everywhere. I just remember it just being such an incredible experience, and one that, you just want to keep doing.
John, 1977 was an amazing year for you. First, let's talk about winning the U.S. Amateur. You did so at Aronimink Golf Club outside of Philadelphia. You won your 36-hole final match, 9-8. Talk about what it was like achieving that goal by that margin.
Well, it really goes back to the year before, when we played at Bel Air in Los Angeles. I was 2 up with 3 to play, and I lost the match. I lost the last 3 holes. And I just remember just the dejection of feeling like I had just failed in every sense of the word. And I just wanted to take one more shot at it. I really wanted to have a chance to win that tournament. The U.S. Amateur is just such a cool event. And, of course, it was all match play back in those days. You started with 200 players. And but the week before, I had played the Walker Cup in 1977. I played 4 matches, which means I played 36 holes a day. And our captain was having us play 36 holes a day in the practice round. So by the time I got to Aronimink, I was bushed, to say the least. I was playing very well, but fortunately in those days I got a bye the first round. I don't know if I could have made it, because you had 2 or 3 days where if you made it towards the end, you had to play 36 holes a day. And I remember, the thing I remember the most was just the second day, the quarterfinals, semifinals. I beat Denny Giles in the morning match, like 2 up, 2-1. And in the afternoon, I played Jay Siegel on his home golf course. And that was one of the biggest crowds I ever played golf in front of. They were about 4 to 6 deep surrounding every hole. And there wasn't anybody in that gallery except maybe my wife, who was pulling for me. And, that was quite an event. And, I hit a couple of career shots from being in trouble and a couple of times, pitch shots through some things, and managed to make birdie. Got to the last hole and I drove it in the middle of the fairway, had a little mud on my ball, and it was just, I'm like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe this. And anyway, so Jay and I drove it together, and I was one up going into the last hole, and I hit a 6-iron about 3 feet. And I said, you know what, I'm not going to let that bother me. And it was probably one of the greatest shots I've ever hit. And I hit it about 3 feet. He hit it in the bunker and blasted out, and he walked over and he said, that was such a great shot. You deserve to win. And I'll never forget those 2 rounds. Those 2 rounds playing 2 U.S. amateur champions. And Jay, of course, I think won a couple of times. And Vinny, who is one of the great amateurs of all time, and having to play them the same day. And in Philadelphia at that particular time of the year was, it was 89 degrees and about the same humidity. So you had to be in your early 20s to be able to make it through. And I just remember, playing extremely well the last day and just driving it right in the middle of the fairway every hole. And I was probably driving it, 30, 40 yards past my opponent. Doug Fischescher is a terrific guy, but just that particular day, I had my game on A, and I drove it in the middle of every fairway. And I think I was under par. Golf course was playing extremely difficult at that time. And it was exciting, believe me. And when you get down, you don't want to let up, because when you do, you can start the momentum going the other way. I just remember, I remember a lot of what happened, even though it was such a long time ago. It was really fun.
John, you mentioned those Walker Cup matches that you played in prior to that, and that year the matches were played at Shinnecock Hills. Augusta National Chairman Fred Ridley was a member of that team, as were Gary Hallberg, Jay Siegel, who you mentioned, Scott Simpson, among others. Sandy Lyle was a member of the Great Britain and Ireland team. Talk about getting to be a part of those matches.
I just remember being incredibly proud to represent the United States. It was truly an honor to be able to be out there. And anybody that doesn't, I've said this many times, it's hard for me to imagine somebody not just, coming to almost tears when you see those bagpipes coming up the hill and your flag flying, and you realize you're representing, the 300 million people that live in the United States. I mean, it's pretty cool. And I just remember playing really, really well. My partner and I, Vance Hefner, and I were the number one doubles team. So we played both matches. In fact, I think there was 3 of them. So we played 4 matches, and one of them was singles. But I was fortunate to have won every match, and we played Sandy Lyle in one of the doubles matches. But our game was just tuned right in, and we were driving the ball well. And Vance and I were great friends, and we just enjoyed the opportunity to play together in that event. We played our practice rounds together, and our captain, Lou Emig, put us together and just let us go. And we were very fortunate to have won.
John, in 1979, you get your first win on tour at the Buick Goodwrench Open. You get it done in a playoff. What was it like for you coming down the stretch trying to win your first PGA Tour event?
It's amazing, quite frankly. I got the last hole at Warwick Hills is about a 485-yard par 4 with out of bounds left and bunkers on the right. I had not made par on that hole until the last day. And I'd made double bogey on the hole one day. And I looked at my caddy because I wasn't watching the board at that time. And I just said, what do we have to do? And he looks at me and says, you have to make 3 to get in a playoff. I'm like, okay, that's fine. At least I know what I have to do now. And I just hit the perfect drive. I just crushed it right down the middle and actually had an 8-iron in. And I hit it about 12 feet and just got up over the putt and lined it up, didn't think about it much, and knocked it in the middle of the hole. And I was really fortunate. Jim Simons on the first playoff hole hit a very poor iron shot. He'd been in the clubhouse for probably 45 minutes, and I was still going strong. And he pulled it, and he made bogey, and I hit the ball in the middle of the green and made par and won. And I have pictures of that. My wife is just sobbing. And it was fun. It was really, really, it's an accomplishment to win an event on the PGA Tour. It really is. It's an amazing. You're beating the best players in the world and at the top of their game, and it was just fun. That's all.
And not only did you win that week, you back it up the following week, and you go back to back. Which, like you say, it's never easy to win a PGA Tour event, one PGA Tour event, let alone do it 2 weeks in a row, and during a time when, so many of the greatest players, of our generation, Jack and Seve and Trevino, Watson, Watkins, you go on and on. So many of those legends are at the peak of their powers at that time in the 70s. Looking back, knowing that you did it 2 weeks in a row has just got to be something that fills you with a lot of pride, and what a tremendous accomplishment.
Well, it was a great, I kind of backed into the second one. I was coming down the last few holes, and I was not really that much in contention. I was 3 or 4 shots back coming into the last hole. And I had figured Lou Graham was going to win the tournament. He was up on me by like 4 shots. What I didn't realize is that he made 2 double bogeys in a row, which is, I still can't believe he did that. And I got to the last hole, looked up on the board and saw he did that. And I'm like, it's a par 5. I'm like, hey, if I make birdie here, I could get in a playoff. And I hit the ball. I pitched the ball about 20 feet and knocked it right in the middle of the hole, and which was fun. I thought, well, I'm going to make it in the playoff. There was 2 or 3 other guys, and none of them made birdie on the last hole, which was shocking to me because it was a reachable 5. And I drove it in the left rough and had to play short off the tee. And so by making that birdie, I wasn't even in a playoff. I just won it straight up. It was, after the week before, I couldn't believe I was winning another event. And so it was, I kind of backed into it. It was last man standing, so to speak. So it was a fun accomplishment, something completely unexpected, like I said. So that was quite a deal.
John, fast forward a few years, you finished 5th at the 1983 PGA Championship, which was won by Hal Sutton. Peter Jacobson would finish 3rd. Your team, Mike Reed, tied for 9th. You never left the top of that leaderboard. You were right there in the mix every day. Talk about that week at Riviera Country Club.
Well, Riviera is one of my favorite golf courses, and I love the golf course because it's a golf course that if you're playing well, you can score. If you aren't playing well, it just beats you up. You don't luck into a good round there or anything. And that particular week, up until the last day, I just played great. The last round, I was paired with Hal Sutton and Ben Crenshaw, and for whatever reason, I just could not make a putt that day because I was in the hunt. And Hal played spectacular. He did all the things that a champion does. And Ben did not have a good day that day. And for whatever reason, my putter just got cold, which that happens in events. I just could not make putts that day. I think I shot like even or 1 under or something, but I just couldn't get it going all day long. But it was still a lot of fun to be in the last group and have a chance to win a championship like that on a great golf course. I'll never forget that either. That was really fun.
John, and your back-to-back victories in 79 got you into the 1980 Masters, where you finished tied for 33rd. But what a wonderful thing to go play at Augusta National. I'm always curious, what does it feel like when you go to the mailbox, get the letter out, and you see you've got an invitation there from the Augusta National Golf Club?
Actually, I played in the Masters 3 times. I played as an amateur in 1977. So that was actually my second. I played it in 1977. I played in 1980 because I won in 1979. Then I played again after I finished high in the PGA. You know what? I have those invitations framed, and there were 3 different chairmen, but boy, having the opportunity to play in the Masters, which is really the cathedral to the game of golf, is really, really cool. And the interesting thing is, I think the first time I played, my invitation is from Clifford Roberts. So it might have been like his last time that he was alive, that he was actually the chairman. So, but I remember playing in the Masters. It was my first time. It was, the amateurs play with former champions. And I was paired with like Art Wall. And I'll never forget, I got up in those days, the tees were shorter. We were using wooden headed clubs, but I drove it over the bunker on number 1, hit a wedge in about 12 feet and made it for birdie. And I thought to myself, it's not going to get any better than this. It didn't. It was fun, but the Masters does such a good job of making your week memorable. I made 3 eagles when I played in that event over the years, and I have glasses. You get Stubing for certain things, and I have 3 children, so they'll each get 2 of them. But what a wonderful memory that was, being able to play in that event. Never finished high enough, as high as I would have liked to have, but the experience of playing there was just awesome. It's a great place to play golf, and as everybody knows, it's very special to be able to drive up Magnolia Lane and be able to hit balls alongside, Arnold Palmer, Jack Nicklaus, and have the opportunity to play on that golf course, which is, historically is one of the greats.
John, just a couple more before I let you go, and I want to switch gears over to your course design work. Talk about what happened and how you got started doing course design and falling in love with that aspect of the game now.
It's interesting. Playing in the early 80s, I was paired with Nicklaus in an event. And, of course, players do chat a little when they're on the golf course. And I just started asking questions because I lived in Portland, Oregon, and they had never had any kind of a major. Still haven't had a major championship in my lifetime. They had the PGA there one year, but it was Ben Hogan won it in, I think it was 1947. But never had the U.S. Open, and I just thought, why couldn't we build a golf course like that? And I kept talking to Jack about it, and he said, you really have a keen interest in this. Why don't you talk to my senior designer, Bob Cupp? And he and I struck up a friendship. Bob is gone now, but he was such a fun person to chit chat with, and I called him all the time. He was so nice to me, and I just enjoyed the opportunity to learn. And all of a sudden, he just told me, he says, you have an aptitude for this. You ought to think about doing this someday. Well, as it turns out, in 85, I I screwed up my spine, and it gave me a lot of time to think about something else. And that's how I got into design. It was really a help from Jack Nicklaus and Bob Cupp, and it was also just my burning desire to do something different. I found that I could draw plans, that I could do those kinds of things, and I could find some work. Pumpkin Ridge was really a major event for me in my life because I had the opportunity to learn so much. I was out there every single day. Bob, of course, living on the East Coast, would come intermittently once or twice a month. And it was just so much fun to learn. And I just got hooked. And I just got to the point where I wanted to study everything about design. I have 600 or 700 books. I'm fortunate I've traveled all over around the world and played golf. And it just became so interesting to me, an obsession. And it was a great pathway when I couldn't really play anymore because of my spine issues. It really became a fantastic part of my life. It's very creative, but at the same time, it also has to be practical. And for me, I just love doing design. I just love it. Every single time I have the chance to do it, I do it. And it with passion, and I love it. And I learned so much from Bob. It was really, really fun learning to think a different way. When you're playing golf, you're just trying to shoot the lowest possible score, however you do it. And but I was fortunate enough to rely on some of those past experiences and being able to do the things that I did in the game of golf before I became an architect really helped me then just learning all the technical skills that it takes to do it. So it's been a passion and I enjoy it and we'll probably do it till the day I die.
John, one more before I let you go. And a mutual friend of ours, Mitch Lawrence, wanted me to say hello to you and how much he has enjoyed getting to spend some time with you and your work out at Pine Needles. As you know, Mitch is just one of the finest people on the planet and has a great podcast of his own, Talking Golf Getaways, which folks, you need to be sure that you add that to your golfing content because Mitch and Darren do such a wonderful job. John, I want to talk about Pine Needles and the work you did there. Talk about that project.
I first of all, Mitch is such a good guy. I actually had the opportunity some years ago to work on that project, a restoration of a Ross, and then make some adjustments to it to maybe make it play for today's golfer. And then I had a second opportunity to actually finish a golf course that Donald Ross never had the chance really to finish in Wilmington, North Carolina, which was where I actually first met Mitch. I had the opportunity, because when I say it was never finished, it was sand greens when it was finished. And before Ross was able to, he never finished the golf course. He never actually did his final design. I had the opportunity to do that, and it seems to be climbing in the ratings. It's just a fun place. I mean, how many places in the world can you go and play a Donald Ross golf course, and it's a municipal golf course? So, I have some great experiences in North Carolina. I love that state so much. I always tell people, if I didn't live in North Carolina, my wife lived here, my kids lived here, I'd probably move to North Carolina. I love that state. It has so many cool things. And Pinehurst and Pine Needles, both are wonderful tests of golf. And then being able to go to Wilmington and work in Charlotte and some of those places, it's just been a great, enjoyable experience to work there.
John, before I let you go, let our listeners know, how can they learn more about you, stay up to date with the great things you're doing, and follow you, whether it's online or it's on social media?
I am not the biggest social media guy. I do have a website, FoteDesign.net. But I just, I take care of my own stuff. People have called me all the time and asked me questions, which I really don't mind. I have an office number here. I live in Scottsdale and I travel a great deal. I like to go look at golf courses. So anybody that talks to me knows I'm extremely passionate, and I'm not the biggest on social media. I'm not on Twitter or some of those things, but I do have a Facebook account, and I do put pictures of projects up there occasionally. I have several I'm going to be putting up there in the near term.
Well, John, I can't thank you enough for being generous with your time tonight and coming to be a part of the show. You're fantastic, my friend. I hope you'll come back and do it again sometime.
Thank you, Chris. All the best to you and all your listeners.
That is the great John Focht, and the spelling of his last name is Fought, and FochtDesign.net is the website. What a tremendous college, amateur, and pro career John had, and looking forward to having him back and hearing more about those stories of his time in college, and then through the 70s and early part of the 80s out on tour, and then obviously catching up on a lot of the great design work he's doing now. All right, folks, it is time for me to put a bow on this episode of Next on the Tee. My sincere thanks go out again to Tim Cusick, Bob Byman, Shane LeBaron, and John Focht for joining me tonight. Folks, please check out our website, nextonthetee.net, to keep up to date with what our guest schedule looks like. And scheduled to join me next week are our resident director of instruction, Tom Patchery, will be back, as will LPGA legend Jane Blaylock. Really looking forward to catching back up with Jane again. Another one of the great instructors in our game, Nancy Corsolino, will be making her second visit with me this season. And then we'll round out the show with CEO of Swing U, Charles Cox, making his next On the Tee debut. So it's going to be a great show, folks. I hope you'll come back and be a part of it with us. Thank you again for listening to this show tonight and for continuing to make Next on the Tee a part of your golfing content. Until next week, hit 'em straight, my friends.